Today on the 1012 Big Show, I'm joined by Sam Razz and Chase Kiddy to recap the weekend that was in Big 12 football, including Texas Tech's dominant win over BYU, why the Big 12 is a lock to be a two-bid league in the college football playoff, and everything else that went on this weekend, plus a massive preview of the week ahead in football and basketball coming up on the 1012.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the 1012 Big Show, where every week we recap Big 12 action from the weekend that was with a variety of guests. 1012 Podcast is the flagship show of the 1012 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. That's TEN, the number 12, the word network.com. We're also partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip. Thank you for joining us this week. Wherever you are listening, please do us a favor. Leave 5 stars and a review. It really does help the show out. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, leave us a comment. I would appreciate it. We are going to recap the weekend. Hold on just a second. Listen, I had to get this thing going. Our in the rotation guest is not here yet. Let's hope that they are able to hop in. Otherwise, it's just going to be me until we get to segment 2, and that's okay. If it is, it is. So we'll start things off with what was a pretty light week in the Big 12. Obviously, there was a massive game between Texas Tech and BYU. Some other games this weekend that didn't have quite as much of an impact on the Big 12 title game race, though Houston's not entirely out of it. And we'll get to them here in a bit. But let's start off with the big game. Of course, Texas Tech beating BYU in dominant fashion, 29-7. BYU scored in the fourth quarter. Listen, Texas Tech defense is for real. We all know this. There's no argument. Like, their defense is legit. And this is BYU, who's a team that has been able to win on the margins, win with coaching, win by not making the same mistakes that their opponents do. And they went up against a team who did not make mistakes, who did not give them freebies, who did not turn the ball over, who played phenomenal football. Texas Tech showed up ready for this game. Lubbock was wild and crazy. Glad game day was able to be there. Yeah, BYU with 3 turnovers. Listen, this doesn't mean BYU is not good. And this isn't something like, we've been trying to tell you all season they're overrated. Texas Tech's defense is phenomenal. This is still BYU, probably the second best team in the conference, and a team that is still very likely to end up in Arlington. I said all off season I thought we wouldn't have a rematch, but we're going to. Like, we're going to. It's impossible with the way the standings are currently. Texas Tech now, all 9 of their wins at 9 have come by 20-plus points. Like, the Arizona State game just seems a little bit more fluky every time we stop and look at it, right? Like, it just was a weird game. It happened. Congrats to Arizona State. That's the highlight of the season, I would say, so far for them. But this Texas Tech team is good. It's so good. The defense is phenomenal. 3 Big 12 teams now have 1 conference loss. 3-way tie at the top. Texas Tech, BYU, and Cincinnati. Houston, Utah, Arizona State, all a game back with 2 conference losses. We'll get to them in a second. Texas Tech has 2 games left on their schedule. UCF, a week off, and then at West Virginia. Forget everything else. Just looking at the opponents. Texas Tech's going to Arlington. Throw in how good Texas Tech is this year. They're going to Arlington. Texas Tech's going to Arlington. And this is good for the Big 12. The Texas Tech's going to Arlington. And I would pick them to win the conference title. BYU has TCU at Cincinnati and UCF. Cincinnati has Arizona, BYU, and at TCU. One of BYU or Cincinnati is going to take a second loss. Maybe they lose another one. But one of them is absolutely guaranteed to take a second loss. Now, Houston, Utah, Arizona State. They could all realistically win out the remainder of their games, given their schedule. At least. But if they're going to get to Arlington, if any of them is going to get to Arlington, they need 2 of the 3 one-loss teams to lose at least another game and hope that they can get some tiebreaker things to work their way. I don't feel good about that for Arizona State. Jeff Sims has looked really good. They've had the time off. They're going to have an opportunity. Houston, we'll see. Utah, I just keep winning. Because this is how we set up 2 teams in the playoff, potentially 3. Is you get BYU and Texas Tech there, and then you get Utah winning out. And I think that is the best case scenario for the Big 12 Conference. And listen, this isn't some commentary on how I feel about Cincinnati or Arizona State or Houston or any of the teams. This isn't some like, you're a Texas Tech homer. You're a BYU homer. You love Utah. No, I want. There are times to talk about teams specifically, and there are times to sit here and say this is the best thing for the conference. And the best thing for the conference is any scenario that gets 3 teams into the playoff. 2 teams, absolutely. And the way the ACC is going, that feels like it's a very, very real scenario. But if you could get 3, if Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah all went out, and Texas Tech, BYU is a rematch in the Big 12 title game, and it's a much closer game than the first time, heck, if BYU wins this time around, 3 teams in is really in play. Absolutely really in play. Now, if Texas Tech does to BYU in Arlington what they did to them in Lubbock, I don't know that they'll put BYU in, because they'll argue that the resume, which isn't strength of schedule stuff, not great. I don't love strength of schedule stuff, but it's not. It's like 47th in the country, I think. You'll have gotten blasted by Texas Tech twice. We shall see. We got 3 weeks to go, though. 3 weeks left. 3 weeks left. Listen, I want the Big 12 to have 2 teams in. I would love for the Big 12 to get 3 teams in the playoff. I mean, we would. Now, here's a fun thing. What if Cincinnati wins out, BYU takes a second loss, and Texas Tech Cincinnati in Arlington for the Big 12 title game? Can you get 3 teams in then? Possibly. If Cincinnati were to somehow beat Texas Tech in a very, very close game, Texas Tech would have, Cincinnati would be ranked, be a top 25 showdown. Cincinnati would automatically get in. I think Texas Tech would have enough of a resume to also get in. And then there's Utah. There's still enough at play here. It's hard for me to specifically pick Cincinnati over BYU, but they get BYU at home. And I think that is going to matter when it comes down to it. All right, joining me now as we are here in the rotation, diving deep into the weekend that was, our good friend Sam Razz, the Scott and Holman podcast, the Houston podcast here in the Ten12 network. Sam, welcome in, bud. I'm going to throw you right into the deep end, sir. What do you think?
Do it.
Given the scenario of we have 3 one-loss teams left in Texas Tech, BYU, and Cincinnati, and of course 2 lost teams in Houston, Utah, and Arizona State. What's the best case scenario for the Big 12, the last 3 weeks of the regular season, and the Big 12 title game?
I don't want to skew negative to this, but I think it's Tech. And I don't think like their schedule, it really like sets up for any bad losses, but like Tech staying with their current status, because I think that's the easiest, safest team, for the Big 12 to get in the playoff and get in the playoff without very much sweating. And I think from there, really just one of the other one-loss teams, not taking any unexpected from here. Like I really do think the thing that has to happen here is the Big 12 can't cannibalize itself, which is history tells us if this league is going to do anything, even before the current state of teams, the 16-team league, and I think top to bottom being a really good league, I think is just having 2 teams that have not been cannibalized by a league that is very outside of Texas Tech. I think similar in terms of team strength, top to bottom. Now, is that the fan what I want? Like the fan
Yeah,
kind of what I want, and maybe that's me speaking as a fan of a team that has 2 losses, is as much cannibalization as possible. But that's obviously not going to be for the best for the playoff picture, though. Even I think I'm maybe a bit cynical that the people who pick the postseason will give Tech the, or excuse me, not Tech, will give Tech the necessary. So I think they will, just because I think Tech's resume kind of speaks for itself. But we'll give the Big 12 and its member teams the respect they very much deserve.
I feel like they already have, to some extent, because you looked at those first playoff rankings.
Like basically where they slotted BYU,
Texas Tech. Well, Texas Tech and BYU being 7-8, but more importantly was Utah slotted at 13. And that sets Utah up to win out, have teams in front of them lose. And the Big 12 is set up to get 2 teams in, because the highest ranked ACC team was behind. I'm trying to find the rankings. Hold on. Remind me.
Yeah, Louisville losing really hurts.
Georgia Tech
really
was the highest ranked.
Yeah.
No, Louisville was the highest. Virginia was 14. They lost. They were a spot behind Utah. Louisville was 15. They lost. Georgia Tech was 17. They won, but Georgia Tech still has Pitt and Georgia left on their schedule. Like, the ACC is a one bid conference. It opens the door for the Big 12 to not only get 2, but potentially it would take some things. I think it would take some certain things breaking the right way for the Big 12 to get 3 now. With the way BYU lost to Texas Tech, if that's the rematch, it's got to be a much, much closer game in that rematch than it was in Lubbock. Because I think with BYU's resume and their strength of schedule is not great, the fact that they went to Lubbock and just got smacked around and played poorly, I think hurts BYU's chances of getting in as an at-large, whereas Utah, with their 2 losses, if they can win out, will just keep climbing, because there will be other teams who are in front of them who I believe will suffer losses along the way. And we couldn't, the 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff is very, very, very much in play. The 3 teams in feels a little bit less likely, but still a possibility.
Gun to my head, I think it's Tech, obviously, and Utah as well. You think Utah maybe like misses the title game and like Cincy goes there and takes the loss, and then Tech kind of vaults them, or not vault Tech. Utah kind of gets in because they didn't have the getting fed to the wood chipper that is 2025 Texas Tech more recently.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario for Utah now, is to win out and not go to Arlington, so they don't suffer another loss, because they'll just keep moving. And if they can get into that, top 10 spot, they're in as an at-large. Like, if they are a top 10 team, they're in as an at-large, and that's the case because the metrics love Utah. And so if they cannot lose again, I think they're in as an at-large. So you're going to get your Big 12 champ, you're going to get Utah as an at-large. BYU's your best shot unless Cincinnati does something crazy, but they're not even ranked despite only having 2 losses, so that just doesn't love Cincinnati. BYU's got BYU and Cincinnati play in 2 weeks, so one of those teams is going to take another loss anyways. This is a 2-bid conference that could, if things break right, get 3 teams in.
Yeah, certainly hope so. Would think so as well.
All right. Yeah. No, agree. Interesting weekend. Again, not a ton of like, wow. You have Texas Tech beating BYU, and then you have a lot of games that were interesting to keep an eye on. Obviously, shout out to your Houston Cougars, first team to finally beat UCF in the space game. And so now Houston gets to claim space, at least until the next time they face off the space. Again, this is why I keep saying, like, this is a game that should be played annually. UCF can have their official space game, but this needs to have some sort of like space-themed annual rivalry with a trophy akin to the old like MTV Movie Awards Spaceman trophy. Like, this just, I get like, it's here. Like, and now that this has happened, Houston has come and beat UCF in the Bounce House on Space Game and been the first team to do it. Like, this is, what else do we need here, folks? Like, the rivalry is here.
Yeah, I've never bristled at the idea of doing a little trophy, because I think rivalry trophies in college football are very fun. I think the only thing I've bristled at with this is that this would actually be a rivalry game that both sets of fans would care about, other than, like it's for space and stuff like that, because we've had, we've had 20 something years together in multiple conferences prior to this one. And some of that was scheduling. We just never like, there was a stretch where we saw Texas Tech in non-conference significantly more than we saw UCF in conference. So I think that's some of that. It's just they were never an annual opponent that we saw terribly often on the football field. But I don't know if it didn't develop over that in terms of like actual organic, like, these fan bases hate each other's guts and want to win this game. I don't know if this will do it, but again, to my original point, if they want to do like a trophy or something for it, maybe even a little charitable element as well. Like I love space stuff. So I think that would be cool. Eddie Nunez, if you're listening, make it happen.
Who doesn't love
Terry,
space,
I
Sam?
can't
Who
pronounce
doesn't
your
love
last
space?
name. I was gonna say.
Arizona and Iowa State, though, comeback wins over the weekend. Both needed them to get their 6th win to reach bowl eligibility. A absolutely tough loss for Kansas. I mean, that one hurts. Shout out to Locked On Jayhawks for this stat. There have been 120 occasions this year where a college football defense has recorded 5 sacks in a game. The record for those teams is 102-18. Kansas is now one of the 18. Take that one step further. Kansas is the first Big 12 team to get 5+ sacks and give up 0 and lose in a game since 2020 Kansas State Baylor. Kansas had that game and absolutely blew it. And watching a good amount of that game, I understand that nice defensive stat we just read. This was way less about two defenses battling it out and having great performances and really doing it. It was way more about like two mediocre offenses failing to find any consistency on the field on Saturday. It was just a really kind of ugly, like not all games are close games are good games. It wasn't, it was just an ugly close game that started off with some offense, and then the offenses just seemed to kind of, I don't know what we're doing anymore. I mean, it's a devastating loss for Kansas, but it was also just kind of like a meh game in general.
I have a fun stat from this one as well that you haven't said. So you said Kansas had 5 sacks, right? I remembered this from when we previewed Arizona because I thought it was one of those, it sounded kind of, it was weird to me, but right before we played Arizona played Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State had 6 sacks against Arizona in that blowout win in Tucson. This is the second game Arizona has won this year while allowing 5 or more sacks. Like that's pretty wild.
That is wild. Holy cow, that's wild. That
I heard you say 5 sacks. I was like,
wait
a minute.
Shows
yeah. I just vaguely remembered Arizona. That and just being at the time, like, how do you have 6 sacks and lose by like 30 or whatever Oak State lost to Arizona by?
Because when you give up a sack and then you convert a 2nd and 13 into a first down, sacks don't mean much.
This is true.
For Iowa State, offense finally showed up in the second half of the game, scoring the final 2 touchdowns to get the win over TCU. That, I think, this is we keep looking for like the chaos to happen. I think in the Big 12 this year, like, I just don't feel like at the top we're getting much chaos. Like, I feel pretty confident. Like, we have Utah, we have BYU, we have Texas Tech. I think Cincinnati and BYU will be interesting. Maybe Cincinnati pulls off a win, but that's not like chaos to me. Chaos is the middle. The middle is just eating itself alive. And at this point, the question becomes like, how many teams are actually going to get to go bowling? Because like Iowa State for a while there was like, I don't know if they'll win another game. And then they go on the road to TCU and somehow limit that offense that's just as potent as can be to 17 points and get a win. We're just like, I don't understand either of these teams at this. Like, am I supposed to think Iowa State's figured things out now, or is TCU just incredibly unreliable and inconsistent? Like, it's so hard to figure out what the middle of the Big 12 is, because it's like there's a whole bunch of teams that are all basically the same, just with different problems.
And I would say, yeah, I think the chaos of the Big 12 exists between, I would say it starts at about whatever Houston's tier is, let's say good, but not top 25 level. I don't think there's been that much at the very top. Like, I don't think, like, obviously how decisive it was is still a little eye-opening, but I don't think Tech beating Utah in Salt Lake is unbelievably surprising. I don't think Utah losing to BYU in the Holy War is really that surprising or chaotic, especially considering it was in Provo. I don't think I know it was eye-opening how decisively BYU got beaten, but I think that was one of the least surprising results. Like Tech, especially at home, especially when they have an advantage in the trenches, is just this, I think, very, very difficult team to win. Going to that back to the Iowa State game, I think, I know they've gotten to bowl eligibility. I know they have some good wins this year, but to me that cements TCU as the least trustworthy team among the not bad tier of Big 12 teams. Because there's like 6-3, good wins in there, but you cannot rely on TCU to week in, week out take care of business. Like I still think they'll be around 8 or 9 wins. I still don't have an insane amount of confidence when they come from Fort Worth to Houston in a couple weeks to take on the Cougs, that the Cougs will win that. But just a very hard to predict team, and not in a way that I would imagine many of the Horned Frog faithful enjoy.
Yeah. See, that's where the chaos might come is TCU at BYU. Now, listen, I'm not going to pick BYU to lose a home game at night with an after dark kickoff, but like TCU is would go and beat BYU on the road and throw everything into chaos and then go lose to like Houston and Cincinnati to end the season. Like I don't know. I just don't understand this TCU team like at all. They don't make sense. They are the most unreliable team in the Big 12 conference. And I don't know anything else to say about them. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's just like, okay, great. Thanks, TCU. You were also playing football this season well enough to go bowling and probably get 7 or 8 wins, finish with a winning record this season, but not good enough to be like, yay.
Because I thought TCU might be one of those outside the tier that Texas Tech, I think, is kind of mostly occupying themselves. One of those like good teams. And I mean, it's 3 games left in the regular season for them. It's theoretically possible, but I don't know what through 9 games of this season, having watched this TCU team, would lead you to believe that a 3-0 finish would be the case, even if it's still theoretically possible.
I mean, all things are possible. There's a universe out there somewhere in which TCU is undefeated. It's a weird universe, but it exists. I've been really impressed by West Virginia's turnaround this season. The last 3 weeks, again, this is a West Virginia team that had a really tough start. The pieces don't fit the scheme, and then they had a wave of injuries. Like they have been. I think this is the team that's been most decimated just by injuries that have really killed this offense. But the last 3 weeks looked good against TCU, beats Houston. Big upset win there, and then beats Colorado. And you say, well, Colorado's not any good. No, Colorado is like, I think they're done for the season. But I think Skylar Callahan wrote an article at SI, and I really liked his point on this, and that this win was more impressive than the one over Houston. And the argument is, and I like this argument, it's a little bit of like mental gymnastics, but I can roll with it. Beating Houston, who was 7-1 at the time, is big because you pulled off this big upset win over a ranked Houston squad. But then you turned around, came home against a Colorado team that no one thinks is good, that you are favored to beat. You lose the turnover battle to Colorado 3-1. You were outscored in the second half, but you avoided the massive letdown. Like, I think the fact that it's not like, hey, we've seen teams all the time who like get some big upset win and then the next week they're back to not being very good against a team that they absolutely should beat, and they don't have another win the rest of the season. I think for West Virginia to have 3 straight weeks of playing good enough to win 3 games and going 2-1 shows that there is some turnaround this season. Now look, they're not going to go bowling. They'd have to finish undefeated, and they've still got Arizona State and Texas Tech on the schedule. So I'm sorry, West Virginia. I don't think it's going to happen. But for them to finish the year with 4 wins, get the win over Pitt, get the upset win over Houston, get 2 wins in conference play. Oklahoma State doesn't have 2 wins in conference play. Oklahoma State doesn't have 2 wins in conference play in last season, this season combined. So for West Virginia to get 2 conference wins this year and have 4 wins in year 1 of Rich Rod, and it feels like it's a thing to be at least excited about and to try and build some hope and momentum into next year off of.
Yeah, I think four wins and multiple Big 12 wins. I think considering everything that's gone wrong for West Virginia to this point. And I think that was one of those situations where bowl eligibility for them this year, I think, hinged on a lot of things going right, and that emphatically has not happened. So yeah, I think I feel pretty good. I know when I saw last game or the game before this last one against West Virginia, it didn't look like Rich Rodriguez had entirely his usual personnel to work with when they were on the other side of the field as Houston, but that looked like a Rich Rodriguez run game. That looked like a guy who still knows how to cook up a good offense when he kind of knows what pieces he has and they semi fit for purpose. I think the interesting question for me is, has Scotty Fox shown enough now, or will he show up enough over your remaining games with that, two really difficult opponents to go into next offseason with him penciled in as the guy at quarterback, or does Rodriguez take a swing on a mobile portal quarterback who maybe looks a little bit more like what we saw during his West Virginia years and maybe more recently at Arizona State and Jacksonville State? I think it's an interesting thing to me because he looked really good against us. I know he wasn't asked to throw the football a lot, but when he was, he changed the game with it. He had a couple of big completions against us. Looked good enough running the ball. I don't think was every bit the dynamic speedster of some of the Rodriguez quarterbacks of years past, but more than good enough. Certainly not a statue out there. So that's a guy I'm really gonna be watching this offseason to see if he's the guy Rich Rod builds around there, or maybe he's had a nice little finish, but West Virginia and their staff think maybe someone else out there's a better fit. That's kind of what I'm watching with them.
Yeah, I do think that's an interesting takeaway there. I mean, they've got a lot of things they've got to figure out on that roster outside of just quarterback, but it will be interesting to see if he is the guy. If you look at this and say, hey, there are pieces on here that we can continue to build around, and I don't know the answer to that yet, but it is going to be something interesting to kind of keep an eye on moving forward. All right. Let's talk about bowls. Colorado joins Oklahoma State in being eliminated from bowl contention after suffering their 7th loss in the season on the road to West Virginia. Arizona and Iowa State, as we mentioned, joined BYU, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Houston, TCU, Utah, and Arizona State among bowl-eligible teams, bringing the total to 9. So 9 bowl-eligible teams, 2 eliminated. That leaves 5 teams who could still technically reach bowl eligibility by getting 6 wins. The 2 teams that are 1 away, Kansas and Baylor. So let's play the schedule game because that's what we do here. That's how we kind of figure this out. Kansas needs 1 win. They have Iowa State on the road. Actually, Kansas is off this week, and then they have a road game at Iowa State and a home game against Utah. Sam, gun to your head. Will Kansas get the 6th win that they need to go bowling this year?
Iowa State's been, I think for understandable reasons, kind of hard to figure. Like, I'd have a little heartburn being confidently like with their defense and the shape it is, lots of injuries, even off of a great performance against TCU. Cannot emphasize that enough. I don't think I'm saying anything that Iowa State fans would mostly agree with there. Will be tough for Kansas going into Jack Trice and winning this. I don't like picking against the Cyclones at home. And this is a team that's flashed good things, but also this is a team that at times defensively has looked completely outmatched by multiple opponents. Lost to Colorado, though that was in Boulder, so I won't ding them too much for that. I think, because I don't think it's happening against Utah, even at home, I think the Hawks get their 6th in a couple Saturdays in Ames, but if you could hear it from my voice, I'm not wildly confident about it.
Yeah, I don't. It's not a normal Iowa State season, so it's hard to be like, I'm not going to pick them to lose in Ames, but also like, I don't know that I want to pick Kansas to win on the road. Like, I know they beat UCF on the road. Their one game that they won on the road was, a nail biter of a win against a UCF team that's not very good. So I don't know. And then again, you lose another nail biter that you should have won against Arizona and you've lost that game. I don't know that I feel good about Kansas. I might want to say yes if Kansas was off this week and Iowa State was playing, but they're both off, so they're both idle.
come on.
I don't know that Kansas gets a 6th win because I'm certainly not going to pick them to beat Utah at home at the end of the regular season. So at this point, I'm going to say Kansas no. I'm going to say Kansas no as well. Baylor's the other one who needs just one win left. The difference for them is they have 3 opportunities to get it, though I'm not sure their situation's that much better. They host Utah this week, then go to Arizona, then host Houston. I'm going to give Baylor, I'm not going to say definitively yes, but I would say I feel much better about them, at least with the Arizona and Houston games, potentially getting to a bowl game. Like, I don't love Arizona. I haven't been super confident in them. I could absolutely see Baylor doing enough to go on the road and get that win, though as I look through Baylor's schedule, they won SMU on the road, and of course they beat Oklahoma State, but everybody beats Oklahoma State, so not saying much. So, and then of course hosting Houston to end the regular season, like could Baylor beat Houston? I think Baylor could beat Houston. So I don't want to say, I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. We lost Sam; his internet went out. It's okay. It's just one of those shows. This is an episode where I'm like, man, maybe I should have just taken the day off. We've lost Sam for the rest. That's fine. Our other guest for today, not going to make it. So as soon as Chase gets in here, we'll bring Chase in. It's just one of those episodes. Things happen. I'll say Baylor does. I'll say Baylor also will go bowling. 3 teams, 2 wins away from going to a bowl game. First one we'll talk about is Kansas State. I'm not even going to look at the schedule. I'm going to tell you, I think Kansas State's going to go to a bowl game. They go to Oklahoma State this week. Then they go to Utah. Then they host Colorado. Oklahoma State and Colorado on the schedule. Yes, Kansas State's going to get the 2 wins they need. I mean, it's a nail biter. You've got to win 2 of your last 3. But luckily, you have Oklahoma State and Colorado. Oklahoma State, who's just not good, and Colorado, who has basically given up on the season. Yeah, I'm going to say Kansas State picks up 2 wins and goes bowling this season, which I think, given the way the season has gone, that's a positive. That's a positive. Okay, take it. UCF needs 2 more wins to go to a bowl game. They're sitting at 4-5. They have the 2 wins in their final 3. They're on the road at Texas Tech, home versus Oklahoma State, on the road at BYU. I got to be honest. No. They would require them to not only beat Oklahoma State at home, which I think they can do or will do, absolutely. But you'd have to win a road game at Texas Tech or at BYU. I'm not picking that to happen. I'm not picking that to happen at all. So UCF to me is a no. They've had their opportunities. They probably should have beaten Houston, but they just couldn't hang on against Houston this past week. I would say you had opportunity against Cincinnati the way that game went. You had your opportunity against Kansas. They've had plenty of opportunities. You should feel pretty good if you're a UCF fan if they finish with 5 wins this season in year 1, because that's a whole lot better than I would have expected from UCF to get to 5 wins. But I will not believe that UCF will go bowling this year. Sam is back now. Let's see if he can stick around for a minute. Sam, we'll go back to Kansas State for you. Kansas State needs 2 wins to go bowling this year. 2 wins in their final 3 games. I say yes, their games are at Oklahoma State, at Utah, and home versus Colorado. I feel very confident the way Kansas State's playing lately that they should be able to beat Oklahoma State on the road and beat Colorado at home in their season finale. I know that's getting close, but 6-6 gets it done. What do you think?
If it was any harder than Colorado and Oklahoma State as 2 of their 3, I might push back on that because they've been a very inconsistent team this year. But I feel like those 2 teams have very much checked out in different ways on the current season, and I think K-State has played at least well enough to beat those 2. I think you said Utah was the 3rd one, right?
Yeah, no, they're not. Yeah. It's a road game at Utah.
Not happening there, but yeah, Oklahoma State and Colorado. I think that team, even with some of its warts, even with the ways it hasn't lived up to some of the preseason hype, I don't think they'll have any problem getting a 6 with that left on the schedule. Is the Colorado one the finale in Manhattan?
I agree. Yes.
We're going to see levels of quit from this Colorado team, the likes of which that may had not been seen in a good long while. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Already seeing that. UCF needs 2 more wins to reach bowl eligibility. They've got a road game at Texas Tech, a home game against Oklahoma State, and a road game at BYU. Absolutely not.
Now, the shame is UCF has half a team that is very much bowl capable, which I think it gives me not great flashbacks to last year's Houston team, because Houston last year had a defense that was paired with, if it had been paired with even a half decent offense, that season was more than good enough to get to 6. I think same with this UCF team. And I probably wasn't alone among people being kind of surprised and not super jazzed for them hiring Alex Grinch. But I mean, the Cougars' performance on Friday aside, I would say that that side of the ball for them has been, I think, more than good enough this year. It's just been, there's been offense. And I think some of the typical first year stuff you see from a new coach, I feel like they brought in 60 something new players. I feel like I saw during the offseason, they were one of the teams that was wildly different year to year off of Gus Malzahn leaving there. So no, don't think it's any sign for concern, but yeah, pretty strongly in the no on them finding 6 wins.
I will say a 5-win season in year 1 for Scott Frost's return to UCF is way better than I expected from them. So I would call it a good year, even with the lack of bowl game. Finally, West Virginia needs 2 wins. Their last 2 games we've mentioned at Arizona State and home for Texas Tech. West Virginia is not going to a bowl game.
No, hard to see how it happens. And like we said earlier, not any reason for pessimism about what Rich Rod's building there. Just not a team capable of competing with those last 2 teams right now.
No. All right. Sam, I appreciate you hopping back in. As always, everybody go check out the Scott and Holman podcast. That's PAWD cast pod. Haha, paw. It's Cougar paw. Man, there's a lot going on right now. We got basketball going. I know you guys are excited about the Houston men's team, at least keeping a close eye on the Houston women and kind of see what happens there. So everybody make sure that you are checking out the Scott and Holman podcast for all your Houston Cougar coverage, the best Houston Cougar podcast there is. Sam and Bobby always doing a phenomenal job. Sam, thanks for joining us tonight. No worries about the technical issues. We completely understand it happens to us all, sir.
Yeah, sorry to you and also our 10-12 friends, the Sons of UCF, this week for my crummy internet.
All right. He joins us now, the man from BetMGM, back home. Missed the Picks Pod this week. That's okay. Even when he's not on the show, he still has a winning week. So we're thrilled to have Chase Kiddy joining us back here on the 10-12, sir.
Yeah, winning week in circa millions too. So nice week away. I should go to New Jersey more often, I guess.
I know it's hard to do it this weekend with Texas with the 5 games with a 5-game slate, but Chase, we'll do this as we always do it. Which outcome this weekend had the biggest impact on your view of that team or the Big 12 conference as a whole?
It is. You really got to stretch. You really got to squint your eyeballs to make something out of this weekend, because it really just was kind of exactly what most people expected. I mean, I think Texas Tech is a double-digit favorite. I think everybody kind of expected, all right, BYU is going to take the first loss here finally, and it did. Cincinnati is off. BYU or Utah is off. A lot of other teams that are kind of 500-ish play reasonably competitive games against other teams that are 500-ish. Colorado and West Virginia play a toilet bowl game that West Virginia wins and covers in. So it's just like, it is what it is. I think if you really want to put the foot down on give me an answer to this question we ask ourselves every week, I think it's maybe Utah, even while they're sitting, because I mean, you still need 2 losses from BYU, which I just don't think they're going to get. But you can kind of start to see the path line up now that you're within spitting distance of the end of the season, where, all right, we kind of need regression to hit hard for BYU. Cincinnati deals the loss to BYU, but then trips up somewhere else. Now all you need is 1 more loss from BYU, and Utah's in the championship game. So, like, I guess that would be my answer, but it's a really hard question to answer just because we got everything we thought we were going to get this weekend, and there's just not a lot of hay to make.
Yeah, as far as title game race goes, yes, absolutely. I mean, Iowa State going on the road and beating TCU was surprising. Arizona beating Kansas, not surprising. Arizona coming back in the way that they did in Kansas, basically blowing that game, was a little bit surprising. But I don't. As far as the title game race goes, there wasn't any sort of major impact. I do think the Big 12, I would say if there was anything that happened that affected my opinion of the Big 12, it was Virginia and
ACC.
Louisville losing. And I think cementing the Big 12 as a two-bid conference for the playoff this year.
Well, I want to take it easy on cementing, but it looks pretty good. Yeah. Is there any situation, I guess?
You have one last team left.
Is there a situation where it's so tight at the cutoff point between BYU and Cincinnati that one of them makes the title game, loses, and then the playoff bid goes to the other team? Is that in your head as a thing that could happen?
No. Where I view this right now is that I think Texas Tech probably wins the conference. Utah was sitting at number 13 in the first playoff ranking, and the metrics love Utah. If they win out, you look at the teams ahead of them, probably going to suffer some losses. And they don't have to play in the likelihood of them playing in the Big 12 title game is very slim. So Utah finishes 10-2. The metrics love them, and they end up as a top 10 team. They're getting in as an at-large. So you get your Big 12 champion, you get at-large Utah, and then the question just becomes, if it's Texas Tech versus BYU in a rematch, does BYU win or keep the game significantly closer than the first time they played? Because BYU is going to get dinged for how badly they lost to Texas Tech. Probably more than they should be, but they're going to get dinged. Utah is in a good spot at 13 with 2 losses to win out, sneak into the top 10, and make it in as an at-large team. Like I think that's the best thing that's happened for the Big 12 is Utah being put in a spot to win out and get in.
And that would be interesting because they have the head-to-head win over Arizona State, which isn't going to age well, but I think at the time, we know Leavitt didn't play in that game. But even still, when that game was played, a win over Arizona State meant something. And then you have it looks like a blowout win over Cincinnati. It was sort of a more slow-moving blowout than you might think if you only saw, the score at a glance weeks and weeks later. But those two games are going to age well. I guess if you were another conference and you were trying to make an attack on Utah, you might say, okay, so their non-conference was UCLA, Cal Poly, and Wyoming. How much should I care that your marquee wins that you're pinning your fringe playoff hope on is like Cincinnati and Arizona State without their quarterback?
And I understand that argument. What I'm saying is the committee has shown like strength of schedule matters, but like they don't care about the non-conference strength of schedule. But the fact that Utah, outside of the 2 losses, has basically destroyed everyone they've played is why the metrics love Utah. And they seem to favor the metrics, and that's why you have Utah at 13. Like, I don't understand. Barring another loss, I don't see how Utah drops in the ranking. Like, they're going to keep playing the way they've been playing, and they're going to go and just beat up on Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas to end the regular season. Like, the metrics are going to keep loving them. And you look at what OU has left on the schedule because they're at 12. They were at 12. Texas has left on the schedule. They were at 11. Like, even Oregon has left on the schedule. Like, if they start suffering more losses, Utah's going to move up. Like, Utah to me is going to finish ahead of OU and Texas. That would put them at
Oklahoma
right
for sure.
That's assuming that
Oklahoma for sure because Mateer's not healthy.
I think Texas has Georgia, and Texas A&M left on their schedule.
Yeah, so that's 1-1 if you're lucky.
So that puts Utah at 11, assuming no one else loses another game. Like, I think Utah is in a prime spot to get in as an at-large.
And it would be an interesting proof of concept, because we've seen the SEC and we've seen the Big Ten get multiple at-larges in, to the point where, I mean, we're doing this off of 1 year sample, so I don't want to make it sound like, we have all this data. But what we saw last year is the Big Ten and the SEC can get a team in that didn't make the conference championship game. But the ACC and the Big 12 haven't yet done that. And so this would be, in kind of a quirky way, this would be the Big 12 getting 2 in, one of which did not play in its conference championship game. And that would be interesting. And over on, in other parts of the internet tonight, I'm listening to Spaces on Twitter talk about how, well, isn't there a scenario where the ACC actually just goes totally, bat bleep crazy over the last month of the season here, and they just kill all of each other, and the G5 actually gets 2 bids in, and the ACC is totally left out in the cold? I think that is unlikely, but it is a thing you're going to hear about over the next couple weeks.
Yeah. The problem then would require
maybe not as
a
crazy
G5
as it
team
sounds,
to
though.
win, to move up. Right, but
Just because Georgia Tech plays Georgia, right, in week 14. So
Yeah,
you're
they're
probably
gonna-
going to
yeah.
take a bang there. I think Virginia, kind of like BYU, has been playing with negative regression all season. Duke just lost to UConn. Duke's probably going to be in the ACC championship game. So you are taking some L's here. The Cal loss for Louisville was not great. Pitt's going to lose to Notre Dame next Saturday. It is a little dicey. I still think you need so many things to go wrong for that scenario. So it's probably worth talking about, but I'm not pinning my hopes on it.
No. Okay, Chase, any early lines for this coming week that stick out to you?
Well, let's pull it up here, because I'll be straight with you. I haven't looked yet.
That is some mighty
busy day.
mighty fine podcasting right there.
Arizona, Cincinnati. I mean, I don't know what you've seen from Arizona that says less than 7 on the road at Cincinnati. Coming off a bye at that, that's a little strange. I'm late season Cowboy fan over here, so I will probably be taking the 20 and the hook with Oklahoma State against Kansas State. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, Cincinnati's only 5. I don't trust Arizona. Like, I'm not going to trust. Like, no. But like, and BYU is a 4-point favorite over TCU. TCU is the most inconsistent,
I don't know why,
unreliable team. Now, could TCU go in there as Josh Hoover just go off? Maybe, but I would also think it's more likely BYU picks him off like 2 or 3 times, and BYU after dark wins comfortably. I don't know.
What was the last good game you watched from TCU where you were like, that's full strength TCU? Because I mean, it's
when they beat
Tempe,
Michigan in the playoff.
Okay, I was going to limit the research results to this year. I think probably the loss at Arizona State, even in a loss, you were like, yeah, that would be pretty good. Looked good against SMU. So September. Haven't looked right since September.
Yeah. No, they've not. All right. I think Utah -9 versus Baylor. No, give me Utah. Oof, the way they've been destroying teams. That'll be fun. Okay. No,
I totally agree.
Picks?
That was I'm going to sell
okay.
points. Mouth sound.
Yes. All right, Chase. As always, it's a pleasure. We'll get you back this week for the Picks Pod, which will drop on Thursday morning as it usually does. So we'll talk to you again then, sir.
Absolutely. See you Wednesday.
All right, well, we wrap the show by looking to the week that is ahead. A few quick notes. First off, congrats to BYU on winning the Big 12 soccer tournament. Came in as the 8th seed, last team in, win the conference title, are headed to the postseason. So congrats to BYU. That is a mighty fine soccer program. Good start in hoops. The men are 29-3 with wins over Florida, Villanova. Oklahoma State destroyed Texas A&M today. At time of recording, Baylor and Washington are in a battle. It's Baylor 53, Washington 46 with about 13 and a half minutes left in the second quarter. So games of note this week. Lots of Big 12 men's hoops action to keep an eye on. Iowa State has Mississippi State on Monday. Tuesday gives us Cincinnati versus Dayton and Texas Tech at Illinois. The backyard brawl and Kansas State versus Cal on Thursday. And the weekend list is a great one. UCF at A&M, TCU versus Michigan, Colorado versus Providence, Arizona versus UCLA, Arizona State versus Gonzaga, BYU, UConn, and Houston, Auburn. I mean, get yourself, what a weekend. Friday and Saturday. If the football doesn't do it for you, the hoops will. And if neither of those do, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. On the women's side, Big 12 with a 32-3 start. This week offers us Colorado at Louisville, West Virginia versus Duke, Utah versus Washington, border war between Kansas and Missouri, and a loaded Sunday of Texas Tech versus Arkansas, TCU at NC State, and Kansas State versus Texas A&M. So lots of great basketball going on in the Big 12. Shocker, you know. Excuse me. As for football, 3 weeks left in the regular season, folks. 3 weeks. Season always goes by so fast. Unless your team hasn't won an FBS game since September of 2024. This week, 4 teams are idle: Colorado, Kansas, Houston, and Iowa State. Can I just say, I get it because you had 2 idle weeks this year. Even still, I wish we didn't have any teams idle the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Just because there's Texas Tech and West Virginia are off week 13. And so week 14 is, I think, the only week you're going to have all 16 teams playing. It's just, can we not? Can we have some lighter weeks earlier on? There's no reason that the last 2 weeks, definitely, and preferably the last 3 weeks, aren't full 8-game, everyone's in action weeks of college football. I get it with the 2 idle weeks, but come on. Don't do that. 7 games a week is fine. I'll take a couple extra 6-game weeks if it means that the last 3 weeks are just everyone's playing. Last 3 weeks of the regular season, let's go. Figure out how to make it happen. I would love it. All games this week are on Saturday. Loaded morning with 3 games. Kansas State's on the road at Oklahoma State at 11 a.m. on ESPNU. Wildcats need this one to feel good about making a bowl, as we've talked about. They really need the Oklahoma State game and the Colorado game if they're going to get to 6 wins, because otherwise it's a road game at Utah, and good luck with that. Also at 11 a.m. God's time on FS1, Cincinnati hosting Arizona. Cincinnati's still in the running for the Big 12 title game. They've got 1 loss in conference play. They are coming off of week off. It should be primed and ready to go. Finally, our TNT game this week between Arizona State and West Virginia kicks off at noon. God's time. As always, watch the TNT games. Watch the TNT games. They are phenomenal. West Virginia has to win out to go bowling. Arizona State trying to stay in the Big 12 title game race, or at least as close to it as they can. 1 afternoon game on the schedule. 2:30 God's time kickoff on Fox. Texas Tech welcomes UCF to Lubbock. Unless you're a UCF or Texas Tech fan, that's the game I would be like, if there's a game this weekend to skip, that's going to be over when the teams both get on the field. 2 late games. Baylor hosts Utah at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. 2 teams meeting for a 3rd straight year, but for the first time in a conference matchup, Utah's 2-0 in the series. Baylor's still seeking their 6th win. And then we get Big 12 After Dark featuring a former Mountain West matchup. BYU playing host at TCU. Horned Frogs have won 5 straight in this series, including their first meeting as Big 12 opponents back in 2023. But we all know the BYU After Dark stat. Good luck, Horned Frogs. So thank you, everybody who's listening. Appreciate you joining us. Don't forget, Big 12 Wrestling is underway as well. We'll try and get our good friend Lee Cothran, the Ten12 podcast, on. Go check out that show. Phenomenal job covering Big 12 Wrestling. If you're a Big 12 fan, if you're a Big 12 Wrestling fan, the Pen 12 podcast. Isn't that a great name? Pen 12, PIN. Want to? Just go check it out. It's a fantastic job. Him, Lee, and Sam Phillips do just great work covering Big 12 wrestling. So go check that out. Like I said, we'll try and get Lee on soon. Y'all have a good week. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll make picks. We'll have a guest. Can't tell you who it is yet. Got to make sure they're going to be able to make it. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.